Hey there, anime adventurers! Welcome to the very first recap of Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood. And trust me, it's already one heck of a ride. In this video, we're diving into episodes 1 through 7, where we meet the iconic Elric brothers, Ed and Al, who've already broken the biggest rule in alchemy, and lost a whole lot more than just sleep over it. From failed transmutations and terrifying truths to chimera tears, these early episodes hit us with deep lore, big emotions, and battles that'll have you glued to your seat. So whether you're here to relive the feels or just catch up, let's get into the heart of the story where it all began. Metal limbs, red coats, and all. Let's go! The story centers around two young brothers, Edward Elric and Alphonse Elric. Two brilliant alchemists on a journey to restore their bodies after a tragic accident involving forbidden alchemy. As children, they attempted the impossible, using alchemy to bring their dead mother back to life. But it all went terribly wrong. Edward lost his arm and leg. Alphonse lost his entire body. Their journey begins in Central, the capital of Amestris, where a rogue alchemist named Isaac McDougall, also known as the Freezing Alchemist, is terrorizing the city with deadly water-based alchemy. He freezes and burns with ease, creating chaos in his pursuit of revenge. Command Führer King Bradley takes the advantage of Colonel Roy Mustang's recent visit to the capital and puts him in charge of capturing Isaac, who fought alongside him in Ishpal for his mission. Colonel Mustang calls on the help of the Elric brothers, Edward Elric and his younger brother Alphonse. Back at Central Command, Colonel Mustang scolds Edward for taking action without taking his target's abilities into account, and explains once again that their quarry is Isaac McDougall, the Freezer, a former state alchemist who had served during the Ishmael Civil War but quit the state military and became an anti-government radical. Once the fight ends, Isaac plans to kill the Führer using his unique ice alchemy, which is boosted by a Philosopher's Stone, but in the end, it is the Führer who ends up killing him, and a stone in him dissolves before the military has a chance to check. In Lior, a mysterious woman and her stout companion learn of Isaac's death and remarked that he would have made a good human sacrifice. The woman says that the Freezer must have overused his stone and notes that her own mission will begin very soon. Ed and Al, riding the wire train, discuss the rumors involving the Priest of Lyre and how it may lead to the Philosopher's Stone, when suddenly a flashback from 10 years ago starts, where they taught alchemy to themselves, messed up their father's study, and how their mother was proud of them for their skills. Later that year, their mother dies untimely, and unfortunately making Ed and Al determined to break alchemy's greatest taboo, human transmutation, to bring their mother back. After studying as much as they could, the brothers perform the transmutation, but instead of creating their mother, they create an abomination, and the price they paid for that is an arm and a leg from Ed and Al's entire body. At Central Command, as Colonel Roy Mustang prepares to head back to his jurisdiction in East City, he is met by Lieutenant Colonel Mace Hughes, who gives him the final report on the Isaac McDougall incident. A report which notes the Freezing Alchemist's abilities involving Alka history, a mysterious arc from the eastern nation of Qing. In the end, shows the State Alchemist examination that took place a few years ago, which Edward went through, and the Führer is attending in person. Everyone is amazed after seeing that Ed can use alchemy without a transmutation circle. He then transmutes a spear and charges toward the Führer, stopping, while all the guards have their guns pointed at him, in comments on this being a flaw in the examination process. The Führer then walks away with his son drawn and wishes him luck in further examinations, and the spear is sliced into two. Ed goes to the Eastern headquarters, where Colonel Mustang congratulates Ed and gives him his certificate, in which the Führer has appointed him the position of Fullmetal Alchemist. Ed and Al arrive at Lior, learn a little about the place, and introduce themselves to the locals and hear a religious voice on the radio. Then they ask about that voice, and the people explain that the voice is from Father Cornello, who preaches the word of God and performs miracles such as granting immortality and resurrecting the dead. He is the priest Ed and Al are looking for. They head to the church and try to arrange a meeting with the father. In the church, Ed and Al encounter a young woman named Rose, and Edward requests that she secure him an audience with the father. However, after hearing that the famous Fullmetal Alchemist wishes to speak with him, Cornello becomes anxious and suspects that the state military has sent an agent to stop his operation, so he ordered the boys to be killed. But Ed and Al easily control them and convince Cornello to appear before them in person. Edward accuses Cornello of using alchemy to fool his followers with the help of the red gemstone on his ring, the Philosopher Stone. But Cornello denies it and orders Rose to shoot Edward. But it doesn't happen as Cornello expected. Ed and Al explain the reality to her, and then Ed challenges Cornello to face him. When the priest attacks, the boys go to the church's upper levels with Rose to escape. In the end, however, Ed defeats Cornello, and although his life was spared, Cornello was killed by two mysterious men. After all, Ed and Al left disappointed, and the Philosopher's Stone is proven to be a fake. Ed and Al return to Central to report on what happened in Lawyer there. Colonel Mustang directs them to an alchemist specialist named Tucker, a state alchemist specializing in the creation of chimeric alchemy who had earned his certification 2 years ago. Edward explains his intentions to Tucker, who was impressed with Edward's ability to survive 5 human transmutation and succeed at soul binding at such a young age. When Ed and Al leave, Tucker gets a message from the colonel saying that the Sowing Life Alchemist yearly assessment is approaching. When young Nina asks her father to explain about it, he tells her that a state alchemist must submit the results of his or her research once a year in order to qualify for further grant money. And since his previous year's assessment didn't go very well, the upcoming appointment is his last chance to remain in the State Alchemist. Nina is very confident in her father's abilities, but Tucker is unsure and worries that he may lose everything. The next day, the Elric brothers return to continue their studies. But when Nina reveals how lonely she has been since her father became busy with his research, the boys also remember how their own father had done the same and decide to spend the day playing with her. Meanwhile, Tucker struggles desperately to draft a satisfactory assessment report. Back in Central City, Lieutenant Colonel Mace Hughes, who has been placed in charge of the investigation regarding the Scarred Man series of murders targeting the State Alchemists, discusses the case with Major Armstrong, who suggests that the killer's motive may be to punish the State Alchemists for breaking away from the Alchemists' code of service to the people in exchange for government licenses and funding. The next day, Tucker uses his daughter and her dog to transform the Chimera into an irreversible one. After revealing it, Ed angrily attacks Tucker. Eventually, a scarred man comes to Tucker's house and kills him and Nina. In the next scene, Lieutenant Colonel Hughes and Major Armstrong arrive from Central to investigate, lamenting that the killer is one step ahead of them, prompting Colonel Mustang to ask why they are making noises as if anticipating the murder. In Lear, someone that appears to be Father Cornello inspires the people to war, and as a result, the town becomes a war zone. Back in East City, Hughes and Armstrong explain to Colonel Mustang and Hawkeye that they have designated the serial killer Scarf because his only identifying feature is the large scar on his forehead, and he is responsible for 5 state alchemists' deaths and 10 nationwide. Mustang is shocked to hear that the skilled Brigadier General Grand was done in. May suggests that Roy take measures to protect himself since only Flame and Sowing Life were prominent in East City, but Roy suddenly remembers that Fullmetal is also currently in town. In the next scene, Ed sits without remarking about their teacher and thinking about their mother and Nina, and he wonders how he can be so stupid as to hope to overturn such a basic natural law, even now after having suffered so much for it. While thinking suddenly, Ed and Al are attacked by Scar. The scarred man traps them in an alley and is forcing them to fight. To protect his younger brother, Ed offers his life for Scar's word that Al will escape unharmed. Scar agrees to it, but Al opposes his brother's resignation and begs him to run. However, at the end of the fight, Ed loses his automatic arm. Fortunately, Scar is stopped by Colonel Mustang's forces. The Colonel declares Scar under arrest for his crimes, but with the Scar's response, Colonel attempts to take him on with his powers. During the fight, Colonel Mustang and others recognize Scar as an Ishbalan, and after realizing that the forces are far more dangerous than he thought, Scar leaves the place very quickly. With Major Armstrong as their protector, Ed and Al prepare to return to their hometown, because with Ed missing his automatic arm, he is unable to use alchemy, so Armstrong's presence is necessary since they could not defend themselves. They go by train, and as the train makes a stop the following morning, Armstrong suddenly recognizes a man called Dr. Marco. After seeing the Major, Marco panics and runs. Ed gets confused, and then Armstrong explains that Marco had been a state alchemist researching alchemy's possible medical applications, but disappeared after the Civil War. After hearing that Edward insists that they meet him as he may be able to help them, They find out that Dr. Mark has been the town physician since all the other doctors were drafted for the Civil War and never returned. When they finally find him, he is not too happy to see them, believing that they have come to take him back. But after Edward and Al manage to calm Marco down, he explains to them that he had run from Ishbal because of the guilt of having his research used to massacre innocent people during the war, and he is attempting to make amends for his sins by using his life and his research to heal others. But it is the revelation of Marco's research subject that truly shocks the Elrics, as Marco declares that his experiments were to create the legendary Philosopher's Stone. Dr. Marco had been working on creating a Philosopher's Stone and shows them an incomplete one he created, and it is almost a liquid. He explains that what he has is not a complete Philosopher's Stone and may run out of power at any time, but fulfills all of the legendary properties. After seeing that, Ed asks to see his research, but the doctor refuses to show him. The knowledge is too dangerous for anyone to have. However, he chases them down as they are about to get on another train and gives Ed the location of the documents. Eventually, Ed and the others reach the house, where Ed gets a new automatic arm and leaves Ed and the group then stand in front of the first branch of the National Central Library, which houses Dr. Marco's research materials. Unfortunately, it has completely burned down with all of Dr. Marco's research in it. In the meantime, Major Armstrong is ordered to return to headquarters for another mission, while 2 other officers have been assigned to bodyguard the Elric brothers. However, with the help of Maria Ross and Denny Block, they track down a woman named Shishka, who used to work at the library. She has the unique ability to recall everything she has read and copied what she read of Marco's notes. Down in the sewer tunnels, Scar is suddenly attacked, and in his office, Colonel Mustang hears a report from Lieutenant Hawkeye and Second Lieutenant Havoc that sightings of Scar have completely dropped off since his attack on the Elric brothers. Several days later, Maria and Denny enter the room the Elric brothers are working in and try to inspire them as they appear to have been defeated. By that time, they have read the document and learned that human sacrifices are needed to make the Philosopher's Stone. That was one intense ride, huh? What did you think of the first 7 episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood? Let me know your favorite moment in the comments. And hey, if you had a blast recapping with us, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss another episode recap from Sin Anime. Thanks for watching, and remember, equivalent exchange may be the law of alchemy, but here, all you gotta give is a click. See you in the next one.